Hi, Debbie. Welcome to the Mental Health Half Hour. How are you today?
I'm pretty good, and thank you for inviting me to this platform. This is excellent.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. And I am just excited to tell your story, which I think is not just a story, but also about how we can work through you to fill a lot of these mental health resource gaps that exist. Because
Mhm.
not only I know not only are you a mental health professional, but you're also an entrepreneur within the industry.
Right.
So it's great. But tell us where you're at.
Okay, well, I am actually located in Cypress, Texas,
Okay.
which is a suburb right outside of Northwest Houston. So it's essentially Houston, Texas.
Nice.
So it's a very nice area to be in. I'm right smack dab in the middle of a very large ISD.
Okay.
So a lot of people that I'm able to help.
Yeah. No, seriously, a lot. And Houston's a very big community for sure.
Exactly.
Growing exponentially. I actually have my mom's best friend. She just retired and moved to Houston.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and she's loving it and we're from California, and she was trying to look for something close and similar, and her daughter now lives there, and they love it. Absolutely. So it's a great
Very
place to be.
diverse. Very
Yes.
diverse.
Yes, very. That's what she's loving about it as well. Um, well, could you please tell us more about you, your practice, and anything else we'd love to know about you before we get right into it?
Okay, well, actually, I'm from a small town in Indiana. I know you and I had talked about that together. We're Ball State alum.
Yes.
But growing up in that small town, there was no mental health care. There was no place for anybody to go to get any kind of help.
Yeah.
And it was very frustrating. It was frightening. It was all kinds of things, especially growing up, during the civil rights movement. There were still lots of feelings, probably similar to what we're having right now. So there was no help. And I originally, this is going to sound weird, but I didn't want to be a psychotherapist. That never crossed my mind as a kid, I wanted to be all the things that all kids want to be, right? But I noticed all throughout my growing up that most of my friends came to me. Somehow I built trust in people.
Yeah.
And as I continued to get older, more and more people told me that. And I went so far with my bachelor's degree, as far as I could go with my bachelor's degree. And the whole time, everybody's telling me, you've got good clinical skills. And it's like, okay, maybe I should listen to what's going on and what people are telling me.
Yeah.
So that's what led me to really go ahead and pursue psychotherapy. And boy, am I glad, because it is my passion. It's what I was supposed to do.
Whoa, that's great. And how long have you been doing it now?
Well, I have a total of 41 years of experience. That includes vocational rehabilitation, brain injury rehab. I worked in psych hospitals, residential treatment centers, and now I've been in private practice for 18 years.
Whoa, that's awesome. It's having not only a career history, right, but a career history filled with passion and joy and helping move people forward. And honestly, from the conversation we have already had, I know that you're doing that and helping a lot of families, not just adolescents that we'll talk about.
Exactly.
But speaking about your practice for 18 years, would you mind sharing a little bit about your practice? Especially being the only, there's products, there's a lot of things you're doing for your practice, but would love to share a little bit.
So first of all, let me tell you the name. And, I struggled with the name, and what I found out about myself is when I just let things go and I give myself space, things come to me. Yeah. So all of a sudden, one day I thought, HOPE, Psychotherapy of Houston. And HOPE is an acronym for Healing Opportunities that Promote Empowerment. Mm. And it's also home of emotional support tools that make learning to cope interesting and fun. And I always said, when I had the opportunity to open a clinic, it was going to be a place, a safe space for not only the patients to come, but for therapists to be able to come and treat. Because I want everybody to have the opportunity to understand what mental wellness is and to achieve it.
Yeah. And that's great. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so at this point, and I just signed on 2 new people this week. So there are 15 of us. We work with ages, well, pretty much 4 plus.
Okay.
I'm interviewing and hoping, keep your fingers crossed for me, that a nurse practitioner is going to be joining us relatively soon, because I want to have a one-stop shop. I want to have a holistic experience for people, that they know that they can come here and get all their needs met.
Yeah, and that's what's great, especially right now. And part of this we were talking about when we talked on Tuesday was, right, you built your practice with intention that all are welcome. And that's why you're making it safe. And what's really nice to see is that's not a barrier that someone has to worry about now, because you developed that with intent.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. I mean, you know, not that I'm necessarily OCD personality disorder, but, you know, when I designed my space, you know, I even Googled psychology of color. You know, I wanted to make sure that when people walk in, they can see it's safe. They can smell aromatherapy. They can hear comforting music. Everything about it is just safe from the time that they walk in. And when they meet with their therapist, they're going to find somebody that they know from the get-go they can trust. That's the community that I have.
That's incredible, because one thing actually I was talking to my husband about last night was, in doing this, right, is there are all different types of therapy, right? And they can be very specific in general. And a lot of it is about the environment and the comfort and trust. And I don't think people realize that, of like, wait, me and this therapist don't really get along, where you're like, that's the point, is to find that right person, that chemistry fit, right? I'm assuming.
Exactly. Well, and you know, there are 2 factors, and this has been researched, you know, for forever. And the conclusions always come out the same. So that there are 2 factors that have a lot to do with the outcome of therapy. One of them is the therapeutic relationship, and the other is the investment of the patient. I can't say very little, but not much has to do with the therapeutic modality. So it's if that therapist can create safety for you, especially if you've experienced some form of trauma.
Yeah. And
you know that you're safe with them, you can express your emotions with them, your feelings, you're not going to scare them away. Yeah. They are strong enough to sit with you through your healing, through your recovery. That's what the therapeutic relationship does.
Whoa, I love the way that you described that, right? It helps ease a lot of concerns, I think, for people that are new going to therapy, or for their children, right, going to therapy, and they're going to therapy. And I think what's important for people is to find that space.
Exactly.
Yeah, especially now. So so I know for your journey, and we had talked about this, of the journey of adolescence, and and selecting that as your audience. Could you talk a little bit more about that? Because it's almost like I know they selected you, but would you rather talk about that, please?
Okay. Yeah, honestly, because, you know, I didn't want to be a psychotherapist.
Yeah.
That ended up being my passion. I thought I was going to work with young adults. Every job that I have had, even before I got my master's degree and my license, somehow adolescents flocked to me. You know, and I quit questioning it after a while. I said, okay, this is what it is. There's something about me that they can relate to, and something that resonates with them. Yeah. And so I'm a firm believer that your population does pick you. Yeah. It challenged me because I wasn't really prepared for that. So I allowed myself to learn from them, maybe what they'd not received from other services, so that I could create opportunities for them for growth. I could create education for their parents, so that they could know what to do when they left the office. You know, you see a therapist maybe once a week.
Yeah.
Now what do we do when we go home? So they challenged me to learn what it meant to really be traumatized and not have a voice, not to be able to get your needs met. And the unfortunate part was, and it's not about blame, it's about, you know, generational responsibility, but for most parents, and I'm finding this, it doesn't matter the culture, the race, the whatever, because of stigma, most parents don't have a complete toolbox when it comes to their parenting skills. You know,
people are figuring that out, right? It's unfortunate of we don't have these resources that now we desperately need, or we've always needed, but now it's even more of pressure to need them, especially because you talk about in this new normal, right? And talking about for parents, and could you talk about those emotional needs, especially for a child that's not yet went through therapy, but the ones that you characteristically see right at their first visit, and these parents may be experiencing this now, would love to describe a little bit more about from your perspective.
Okay, so what I find is that actually adolescents are the ones that ask for therapy oftentimes, and their parents are the ones that resist. And there could be all kinds of reasons for that, which aren't deserved. Because again, parents are thinking, what have I done wrong? How have I ruined my child? You know, all those kinds of things. There's no need for that blame. When your child is saying, hey, I'm hurting, whether it's physically or emotionally, we're going to get them help. So number one is there's no need to feel blame about anything. And to respect the fact that your child recognizes that there's something that's not as healthy as it could be within them. So a lot of this falls on the responsibility of the parent, recognizing that maybe I don't even know the difference between what an emotion and a thought is. And that I find that happens in probably 99% of the cases that I work with. You know, people don't realize, for number one, that psychotherapy addresses the central nervous system.
Yeah.
You know, they just think it's talk.
Yeah.
But guided talk with intention is able to address the sympathetic nervous system where we're in our fight or flight state all the time, and take us to that parasympathetic nervous system where we can go rest and digest, we can think rationally, we can do all of those things that help us problem solve. So people think that they're expressing feelings when they're expressing thoughts, and then they don't understand why they're not connecting. Why is their child not cooperating? Why is their child acting out? Well, you know, people will say, oh, my kids know exactly how I feel. I tell them how I feel all the time, right?
My mom.
But actually they're expressing their thoughts. They're not saying, hey, you know, when you did this behavior, I got scared.
Yeah.
You know, somebody's going to respond to that a whole lot different than, you better stop doing that kind of thing or I'm going to punish you. Or, you know, there's a difference in how it's delivered and the neuro-linguistic programming, the way that we express it.
It's incredible to digest, right, of all these, because what happens in mental wellness, you're right, a lot of things gets talked about as just talking. And it's not about, like, that's why it's not just about the talking, or otherwise we talk to our friends, which is why people say, don't make your friends your therapist.
Right.
Right, is go to someone that's a trained professional in this, because there's a lot more behind it, which you have revealed, right? It's more than just talk therapy.
Exactly.
And I know, Debbie, during this time, and it's an unfortunate thing that it's on the rise of self-harm with all ages. It's just a tough time, right? There's a lot of it's like the perfect storm of chaos. There's so many things going on at once. And I know that you've developed some proprietary tools, actually, that could really help during this time. Do you mind telling us about those?
Okay, and so one of the reasons why I developed them is because I recognize that most people don't even know what it means to self-soothe. And when we're born with emotions, right? We figure out, even as infants, how to self-soothe. So whether we suck our thumb, or we've got a pacifier, or we reach for that, that blanket or that stuffed animal, we're self-soothing. We don't have the vocabulary to express what we're doing, but we know we're comforting and nurturing ourselves. And I believe systematically over time, as we grow older and developmentally now we can have speech and we can use speech, our ability to self-soothe is taken away, because we as a society anyway, are taught we're not supposed to feel. Right? So if your child falls down and hurts itself and it comes to you crying, oh, just dust yourself off. Mm-hmm. Or, put on your big girl panties. Yeah. Or just whatever the statement is, we're really being taught we're not supposed to feel. And if that's the belief system, who are we going to be able to trust to really say, when this thing happened, my stomach turned over? Yeah. When this thing happened, I called that feeling panic. And now I need to learn how to self-soothe. And I realized when I was working with these teenagers and their families, they had no concept of what that meant. I needed to create something for them so that they could take it home with them, since they see me once a week or less. Yeah. That would continue the growth process and the healing process for them. So I created several things, but the ones that I've really am focusing on right now, one of them is called Anatomy of a Self-Soother poster. And, we could have probably done this in a whole lot more tech-savvy way.
Okay, we'll provide the link. We'll provide the link. That's the new update.
Yeah, but I've got the poster.
Oh, right. But no, you have so this is perfect.
I just don't have it where I can just flash it on the screen.
It's perfect.
But anyway, it's an 18 by 24 inch poster. Yeah. And at the very top, there's the brain. And there's different body parts that help ground us. Wow. And recognize that we can actually self-soothe. We have this intrinsically. We can grab it back. It was taken, but we can reclaim it. Mm. So the very first thing at the top with the brain says, a brain that thinks its own thoughts and knows that that's okay. Well, oftentimes we don't really know that. And especially when we're kids, parents will say, do as I say, not as I do. Or you need to have the same philosophy about something as I have. Well, that's not really healthy. We're each individual people. And one of the other things that I'm noticing now during the pandemic is, and I'm trying to avoid as much social media as I can, but we're being taught, if you are not writing a book, if you are not attending this class, if you're not learning to play an instrument, if you don't have a victory garden, whatever it is, you're failing.
So true.
And that's not true. I have my own thoughts. The problem is our self-esteem is damaged because of everybody else's judgments about who we should be and what we should be accomplishing. And I happen to think it's fantastic that we are surviving what's going on. And that we can even give ourselves credit for getting out of bed, for showing up, for doing something without placing unrealistic expectations on ourselves. So that poster grounds us. It gives us back what has been taken away so that we can actually self-soothe. Then the other thing that I've created that fortunately I just got some more of.
Really?
Yes.
Your dolls you did? Oh, okay, I love it.
I've got 20. Well, actually, I just sold 2, so I've got 18 right now.
Okay, good.
But anyway, this is called COPE Therapy Assistant. And COPE stands for Communicating Openly and Positively Leads to Empowerment. Because, see, therapy is all about being empowered in one way or the other, finding our voice. But we know, because our voices have been muted for all kinds of reasons, whether it's child abuse, domestic violence, trauma of whatever sort, we're afraid to actually say what we're experiencing, or we may not have the emotional IQ to even be able to say it.
Yeah.
So cope becomes a tangible manifestation of the self of the user. And what the user does, and I've just gone ahead and drawn some stuff on here so we can illustrate. I don't know if you can see, but on the top of the head, there's some question marks.
Mm-hmm.
You see what the eyebrows are doing. Mouth is open. Yeah, the mouth is open, and actually, it's not real clear, but it's like thunderbolts are coming out of the mouth.
Yes.
You know, so oftentimes with kids, their depression looks like anger and irritability. They're screaming at you, they're whatever. And sometimes this is a chain across their neck. They just feel like they're choked. They cannot say anything. So they're oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
And for people, again, who self-injure, I've just drawn a little picture here. It's a face. It's sort of flat with a line through it.
Wow, yeah.
I mean, you know, that person is probably feeling a lot of being invisible, you know, not important in any way. In the stomach, this, again, it's hard to see, but this is a plant that's dying.
Wow.
So what emotion might that represent? So see, you get to actually look at what that person has drawn pictorially, because it's an extension of who they are. You're helping them to turn these things into feelings, words. So they don't need to act out anymore. They don't need to engage in self-injury. They don't need to keep ramping up their acting out behavior so that you can see their pain. You've helped them to put it into words. And you know this yourself. Science shows when we express our uncomfortable feelings, we do change our brain chemistry. Our amygdala, that fight or flight, starts to deactivate. Our executive functioning, where we can think more clearly, starts to work. We can more collaboratively work with our parents, our caregivers, our teachers, our whomever, because now we know they feel us.
Yeah.
You know, we hear people say all the time, "You're not hearing me." Well, we're hearing you all right. We just turned it down because the volume got too loud. But they're not feeling us. Now we know we've connected on a human level where they feel. The fun part about this is, I think it's all fun, but when the really fun part is, once you've processed this, that person gets to actually take a damp cloth and wipe away what they put on there. I'm not going to take the time to do it all, but you see it's coming right off. What does that represent to that person, do you think?
Progress, right?
It represents...
I've identified it now. I can recognize it for the future. Is that, I'm assuming, making it up.
Well, it represents the fact that it's safe to express uncomfortable feelings. We get to actually now identify what our emotions, our physical sensations are, and put them into words that other people can feel. So now we really do have a voice.
Yeah.
And 99% of the time, I think I told you this, and I used it again yesterday, actually, because since I got new dolls.
Yeah.
But the young girl that used it went through the process. She was wiping it clean. I was asking her, as you're wiping it, how are you feeling now? And she said, you know what? I'm feeling a whole lot more relieved. I said, you know, that's so cool, because her mom was there watching her go through this process. And I said, I'm going to ask you a strange question, but what would you like to do with Cope right now? And she got a look on her face. I said, it's okay. You can tell me, what would you like to do? And she goes, this is going to sound really strange, but I want to hug it. I said, what's stopping you? Nothing. So she hugged it. Look at the nurturing, look at the healing that happened just because she made her pain visible. Yeah. Other people understood it. and we're able to help her put it into words that she can use in the future rather than acting out.
This is what we all need right now, right? Because when we talk, Stephen, you use this every day, right? Like every day you use this. I need to order my own Coke, Debbie, because I need this. Like I don't think anyone's like having this skill of finding your voice, right? It's a struggle that a lot of people even now, right, are trying to figure out, and they're not adolescents.
Exactly.
Just trying to rediscover. I think a lot of people are doing rediscovery and really trying to interpret what these things are, like anxiety, depression, right? And the end of the day, right, is as you have said when we talked earlier and talked before, and this meeting, is that cope works. But what most important about it works is that you can see helping and saving a life in front of you. That exactly. The kid is disappearing the self-harm, right, of not hearing their voice, the tears, wiping those away. And I think, like I said, all of us need that. But especially this is great for parents to have another tool in their arsenal that they don't have, that I've not heard of, at least.
Because what we really want to do, and I tell people this all the time, when they talk about they're raising their children, we're not raising children. We're raising adults, and hopefully socially responsible adults. And that, that can mean a whole lot of things. But we want to know that the adults that we're sending out into the world have some resiliency.
Yeah.
And if we have no emotional IQ, there's very little chance that we can be resilient when we are traumatized by new things, because we know our whole life, potentially we can be traumatized by something.
Seriously. And that's what and one thing too, that I've at least kept in my head, right, that from our talks, is you also don't forget trauma.
That's exactly right.
And people need to understand that you don't forget it.
Exactly. You don't forget it, but you can learn how to recognize the triggers and employ healthy coping strategies before that trigger takes you someplace that's more harmful.
No, I think that's great. And then what I'd love to, for our last question, if there are adolescents, right, that are struggling, which I'm sure there are, and there's that parent or grandparent that, like we had talked about before, that is in their way, right, from getting therapy, are there any things you've seen that really work for getting over that barrier? I know we talked about it, but I didn't know if there were specific strategies for that person that is struggling with it, of something they could do.
Well, and you have to be careful, because obviously you don't want to recommend that a teenager or an adolescent go to somebody that they really can't trust.
Yeah.
Right. And unfortunately right now, because, school is over, but during the time when people are in school, they know that they can maybe have a trusted teacher, or they can have a trusted counselor that they can start this process of healing with, or at least finding a resource with. Yeah. If they have even just one best friend that they know, that they can tell whatever it is, I'm thinking of harming myself, I'm thinking of suicide, and they know that friend is strong enough to say, hey, wait a minute, let's go talk to this person. Maybe it might be my parent, maybe it might be a clergy member, maybe it might be, who knows? But don't stay silent. And I'm going to throw parents back under the bus a little bit here.
Okay. They all are, right?
Because the parents came first, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it really needs to be their responsibility to recognize that whether I have this skill or not, I can learn this skill. And I can start talking more about my own emotions and my own feelings and my own coping strategies. We're talking about role modeling, right?
Yeah.
So when your kid is struggling, they know you're not perfect. You've had things happen to you, and somehow you have found your resiliency, your voice, your ability to heal. so that they can trust if they talk to you, you're not going to judge them.
And that's
what keeps kids from talking, right? They're going to be judged.
So true. That's what prevents adults, right? I think we all need, I think in turn, we're going to be teaching each other. And right now, as we talked about, right, the younger generations are teaching us a lot. And so, but in this time, I think parents can also use to teach themselves to learn what these feelings and emotions are. Because a lot of people don't know, and they don't even know for their own voice, to your point.
Exactly. And, you know, this is the time, and I've said this to so many people, obviously, since COVID started. If a pandemic doesn't get you to understand we need to obliterate the stigma, I don't know what will.
Obliterate the stigma. Do you mind if I use that from now on? Because that is much better than destigmatize, right? Destigmatize, but it's obliterate the stigma is because it will help and save lives, right? Like
exactly.
We don't even need to go through the mental health stats at this point, because everyone should know this at this point in the world.
And I don't trust the stats anyway, because, you know, they're not reported. People are not reporting what's really going on.
No. And even even the ones that I saw something like 47% of people reporting, I think either anxiety or depression. And to your point, I was like, well, that's underreported.
Mm-hmm.
Even I saw a stat that mental health, that the prevalence has not changed in 20 years. And I was like, there's no way that that's possible.
No way. You know, you still hear 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 people have experienced mental health issues in their lifetime. I guarantee you it's 100% of people have experienced it in their lifetime.
I know. I was like, who are these other people that have not experienced anything? Especially now with this, what we're experiencing. But Debbie, I wanted to also close out, but is there any last advice that you have for people before we end our interview today?
There's probably a whole lot of last advice, but number one is every single human being is worth something, and we're all worth more than we give ourselves credit for. We allow the judgment of other people to impact us to the point where we don't even see our positive qualities. We don't know our self-worth, so we don't even think that we're worth telling, for example, our parents or our spouse or significant other, I need some help. So we view that as a weakness.
Yeah.
That is our biggest strength, is knowing when I'm not doing as well as I would like to do, and I get to ask somebody for help. They might have known something or learned something that I don't know that they can help me with. But again, if we don't use our voices, we are not going to get our needs met.
Agreed. And that has significant consequences when we're not getting our needs met. And I think we can just let go of the judgment.
Exactly.
It help. Right? Just everyone's going to need it anyway. So maybe let's be the pioneers, right? If you're not doing it yet, just be the pioneer.
Yeah, because, because of all of this, I mean, COVID was bad enough, yes. But then everything else that's happening because of, again, people not being able to manage their emotions, people being unemployed, all the things. This, mental health is not going to go right back to where it was before COVID. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even healthy then.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, people throw around mental health terms all the time. They will call a neighbor anxious, general anxiety disorder, right? We throw it around as these bad, and people don't realize what that's caused, right?
Exactly.
And because there's people that really do have anxiety, really do have depression, really do have bipolar, but now people know what that is, obviously. But yeah, we have to obliterate it, like you said.
Right. No shame, no guilt, no embarrassment. You know, we would take care of ourselves physically. If we had something going on, we'd go to the doctor. Here's what I really want to say to obliterate it. See a therapist and let everybody know that you've gone to see a therapist.
Exactly. And that's, hello, easy thing to do. Just,
well, I mean, if you can afford it, obviously. But even when you think you can't, call a therapist, because they may know about low-cost therapy. They may know all kinds of different things that you might not think that they would. They might have a sliding scale. Don't just keep silent and suffer. Reach out for help, because you don't know what you might find.
Thank you. No, that is I think that's a beautiful message to end on. And let's obliterate it. Let's obliterate the stigma. I love it. We're going to keep doing it. Let's go.
All right.
You know, I'm excited about just obliterating it. We're going to do it. It's great. And we all need code.
Well, I think so.
Yes. And the anatomy, the physiology poster, I know we didn't talk through this and this is going on extra about it, but I have to say though, as well, even for when people think of poster, right? And they see a poster, but you've actually had adolescents stand in front of that poster and get it and start crying immediately.
I had an adult do this yesterday, an adult of a young person that I'm working with. So I had her read it and I asked her, what are your feelings after reading it? She said, I get it now. I know what you mean. She was completely more receptive in understanding that her son wasn't acting out just for the fun of it. He had some real reasons, some issues that she didn't fully understand prior to looking at that poster.
I get that. Yeah, I mean, I get that because of what the story from the adolescent and seeing it, but I'm glad that even we have another example to talk about of this really working in this time when it's really hard, right, to find your voice.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it and they're like, I can see why this matters and I can see how to move forward. No, this is great.
Oh.
But thank you very much. And we look forward to having you on again, of course, because you have so much knowledge to provide. But have a great rest of the day and talk soon.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Definitely. Bye.